Hey, you guys, welcome to Reports on China. I am Andy. As you can tell, today I'm not in the studio again. So today I'm just giving you a quick update on the situation here in Shanghai with the citywide lockdown. I can't remember which day it is already, day 5 or 6, I'm not sure, but I just went downstairs for my third PCR test. 2 days ago, Shanghai actually had the largest citywide test I think in Chinese history, probably definitely in the world's history, of 25.6 million people. About 36,000 medical professionals came to help out from all over China, which was really awesome, as well as 2,000 medical professionals from the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. Now, I've been doing quite a few live broadcasts for Shanghai's foreigner community, which has been awesome every day, including last night we did a concert actually with 16 performers from Shanghai and around the world who are currently under lockdown here in Shanghai. So it was really cool. We did have a really touching performer actually yesterday, and a 15-year-old girl, a Chinese girl who is currently locked down under central quarantine here in Shanghai. She brought her violin along with her because she's currently preparing for a music exam. So we connected with her on the show last night and enjoyed her performance from inside lockdown. And first, before that, we chatted with a young guy who's also in lockdown. So let's take a look at that video first, and then I'll come back and give you the update. We're going to chat with James, who is also in central quarantine. James, can you hear me?
Hello. I can hear you.
Hi, James.
Hi. What's the situation like there in central quarantine right now? Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So currently I'm on this centralized quarantine site in Jing'an Stadium, and as you can see here, I'm in this section D, which holds around 80 patients.
Wow. Now, I heard you had some good news. So people who go to central quarantine need to return 2 negative tests. Now, I heard you already returned 1 negative test today.
Exactly. So I took the test yesterday, and the result came today, and it was negative. And right after that, I also took another test. So they gave, so 2 negative tests, and you are out of the central quarantine site.
So if the test you took today comes back negative tomorrow, then you're out of there. You're good to go.
Yes.
All right. Good luck.
I'm not sure what's the next steps, but I will wait to be informed.
That's awesome. Now, how long have you been there for, James?
I was tested positive a few days ago, and I was transferred actually yesterday morning. So I only here, 2 days, 1 night, and tonight, and hopefully I'll be out tomorrow.
Well, that is super fast. So I guess you're really healthy. So it's a really good news for people to know that if you do catch coronavirus and end up in central quarantine, you could end up out as quick as James, which is just a few days. Hey, it was really good speaking with you, James. And now we're going to check out Xuanling, who is a 15-year-old you have met in quarantine, who is currently practicing violin for an exam. And she's going to perform for us a piece called 海滨诗.
I'm very happy to have her in our quarantine site, that to ease the situation, and she is our special guest tonight, and I'm giving the stage to her, and enjoy.
So as you can see, really touching scenes there from inside lockdown. As James said, it's really cool that the people there can enjoy her music. It really is soothing for the soul, I reckon. So yeah, good on them, and I hope they're out soon. Now, I've also been busy doing media interviews with outlets from around the world during this lockdown.
Waiting for updates from the robot dogs now being used to share public health information.
Yeah, it's a very strict lockdown. In fact, I've seen people calling it one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. Now, normally, as you guys know, I'm quite wary of Western media, but I did have quite a good piece with the ABC News in Australia with Roz Childs on her show Live. So I'm going to play that clip in full because I think it's actually a really good example. You know, I criticize Western media a lot here on the show, but I think Roz's show and the piece I did with her was actually quite fair and an example of balanced media coverage, Western media coverage of China. So let's take a quick look. Shanghai tried a new approach that was different than you would have seen in other Chinese cities, which have been through full city lockdowns. Shanghai actually locked down one half Pudong on the 28th of March. That is not the area I'm in. So our lockdown began on April 1st. Up until now, it's fine. Everything seems to be in order. We've had 2 PCR tests, and we're just waiting for news of when we might open up again.
Right. Well, it's day 4. You say, how much longer is the lockdown there likely to go?
Well, officially, the Puxi lockdown, is meant to last until the 5th tomorrow. But as we saw with Pudong, which was meant to be free, as you may like to say, on the 1st of April, that hasn't happened. So Pudong and Puxi, all of Shanghai are now currently locked down. And Pudong is looking for maybe another 7 days or 14 days of lockdown as the numbers keep climbing. So we're not expecting here in Puxi to be out of lockdown tomorrow as anticipated. I'm getting ready for maybe another week or 2.
What are the main problems people are facing there, Andy?
Well, I mean, as you can imagine, with a city of 25 million, this is the first time, believe it or not, that Shanghai is being locked down in this whole two plus years of COVID. So there are problems, of course. I think for most people, it is going quite smoothly. People are happy, but there are some major issues with, for example, food supply. Some trucks heading to Shanghai carrying vegetables, fruit, meat, eggs, and that kind of thing weren't able to get into the city. So there are reports that a lot of that food has gone to waste. Also, there have been reports of people having trouble finding medical help for pre-existing conditions. So there are definitely issues going on. But like I said before, I'd like to stress that, you know, in a city of 25 million, I think it's going pretty well so far.
But are people starting to express any anger at what they're facing, and how are authorities responding?
Well, of course, I think you've seen there's been videos online of protests here and there. Of course, in the West, a lot of people believe protest doesn't take place here, but it certainly does. And there have been instances of small communities rising up, demanding they are let out to buy vegetables and fruit and such. As I said before, I think this is pretty normal. People are venting. It's not nice to be in lockdown, and this is a strict lockdown, probably a lot stricter than a lot of other places in the world. We're not even allowed to leave the front door. So of course there's tension. This is a city of 25 million, but I think, yeah, that's normal to see, and people are dealing with it largely quite well.
So what are case numbers like right now, Andy? And what are rates of vaccination like there as well?
The rate of vaccination in Shanghai is quite high, I think above 80% off the top of my head. We have new numbers daily. So yesterday there were about 8,600 new positive cases. And of course, all of those people need to be sent to central quarantine, which is putting a lot of strain on the system. And there are currently about 56,000 active cases in Shanghai. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, especially for a city of 25 million. But if you keep in mind that China is still aiming for COVID zero, any number above 0 is too much.
Yeah. Tell us a bit more about that COVID zero policy then. What's the feeling about that there? You know, many other countries relying on vaccinations to handle outbreaks rather than keep pursuing lockdowns.
Well, I think COVID zero has been a real point of pride for Chinese people over the past 2 years. It really is something we're proud of here. But I have noticed, I must say, that there has been a bit of a swell in change of opinion among average people about COVID zero. Some people are really starting to talk about whether we do need to start living with the virus. But actually, China's vice premier visited on the 2nd of April, and she stressed that we do need to keep going with COVID zero. So for now, I don't see any changes coming anytime soon. So I'd be really keen to hear what you guys think about that piece. I think it was a very balanced and fair report on China. Roz asked tough questions, but she also let me respond and didn't interrupt. And I think it was overall quite fair and balanced. So I'd love to see more Western media reports on China like this in the future. But speaking of media reports on the situation here in Shanghai, I really would recommend you visit our official website, shanghaidaily.com, which is set up in the English language for foreigners living in Shanghai and anyone else who wants to read. The website is shine.cn, shine.cn. So let's go take a quick look there now. It is updated all the time with official information, not just on Shanghai and China, but also news from around the world. But at the moment, as you can imagine, with Shanghai under a citywide lockdown, the news does tend to focus quite heavily on the situation here, which I hope you guys will go and visit if you want to find out any new information. Here you can see yesterday's numbers. These are the highest numbers Shanghai has seen ever since COVID came onto the scene late 2019, early 2020. So yesterday, Shanghai reported 311 confirmed symptomatic cases and 16,766 asymptomatic infections. Now, this is very important. I think the reason so many of these cases are asymptomatic is because of two things. Number one, the Omicron variant is a whole lot less deadly, but a whole lot more infectious, and also vaccination rates. Now, Chinese vaccination rates are quite high, but I think it could still go a lot higher. Now, another important piece of news is this policy on children who were being separated from their parents if the children tested positive for coronavirus and the parents were still negative. Now, this is a really good example of how responsive the Shanghai government is, and China's governments in general, to public opinion. Now, the fact that children were being separated from their parents, which, as you can see with this story, is no longer the case, really sent the public into quite a, people were quite unhappy, and it was being expressed all across the Chinese internet. Now, a lot of people think that because Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and such are blocked in China, that there are no spaces in China on China's internet for people to vent their frustrations and share their points of view, but that is not the case. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of very popular Chinese social media sites where people share this stuff all the time. And China's governments are very receptive, and they are constantly monitoring public opinion online. So in this case, children, as I said, were being separated from their parents if the children were positive for coronavirus and having to be sent to central quarantine, and parents, if they were not positive, were not allowed to go and accompany them. Now, that was in line with China's laws on the prevention of the spread of infectious diseases, but now they've made changes, and so now parents who are negative can now accompany their positive children into pediatric centers or central quarantine, depending on how old their children are. So that is some really good news. Now, there are still, of course, many problems with Shanghai at the moment, including logistics problems that we're still trying to work out. People are having problems ordering fresh fruit and vegetables and other supplies online. People are getting up really early in the morning and trying to 抢菜, grab the available stock. So it's been difficult. But this morning at the Shanghai government's daily press conference, they mentioned they're working on that and they hope to have it sorted out soon. So I'm crossing my fingers. So yeah, also you might have seen in the news, Western news, that there have been mass uprisings, mass protests across Shanghai. Now, I do want to stress that that is not the case. With a city of 25.6 million, it is very clear that people will be upset with the lockdowns, frustrated, wanting to go back to work. And there have been protests here and there, people saying they want to be let out of their compounds, including some instances in central quarantine where people wanted to be, let out. But that is not the majority. The majority of people are going along with what needs to be done, remaining at home, remaining locked down. So yeah, there are protests. Of course, it's human nature for people to vent their frustrations, but it is by no means a widespread thing. Shanghai is very much in order. So yeah, I think that will be about it for today, you guys. I really appreciate you guys watching. Don't hesitate to leave your comments down below and any questions you have as well. And I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.